Evening, massive show tonight. The Prime Minister prepares to celebrate surpassing Paul Keating's time as Prime Minister. But I'll take a look at how their records compare. I mean, Paul Keating gave the Redfern address. Albanese spoke about shagging Kylie Minogue. Plus, I'll reveal just how many child sex offenders and criminals have been allowed to stay in Australia despite not being citizens. That exclusive story with Jonathan Dunniam soon. And Pauline Hanson accuses Chris Kenny of a gotcha question after she fails to name world leaders.
What about the Prime Minister of Japan?
She's... I can't say.
You can't remember her name either?
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask Matt Canavan if he thinks that question is fair. And in serious news, schoolboys at an elite Sydney private school have been charged with the rape of a teenage girl. Those details coming up. But first, Anthony Albanese surpasses Paul Keating tomorrow in the number of days served as Prime Minister. That's 1,544 long days. In fact, only 3 Labor Prime Ministers have served longer. Andrew Fisher, who led for 4 years and 10 months, Bob Hawke, who was PM for 8 years and 9 months, and Ben Chifley, who served for 4 years and 5 months. So tomorrow, Albanese becomes the 4th longest-serving Labor PM. And this will no doubt be a cause for celebration. In Albanese's mind, at least. As far as I'm concerned, there's not much for Australia to celebrate. And Albanese's record hardly holds up against Keating's. Keating's reforms transformed our nation for the better. He introduced compulsory superannuation, requiring employers to contribute to their employees' retirement savings. He oversaw the Native Title Act of 1993 after the High Court's Mabo decision. Along with Hawke, Keating floated the Australian dollar and was responsible for financial deregulation, tariff reductions, and opened Australia to international capital and competition. He also forged deeper ties with Asia and elevated APEC into a leaders-level forum. But Paul Keating's impact went far beyond economic reform. He demonstrated genuine moral leadership. For example, famously, in his 1992 Redfern speech on Indigenous reconciliation.
The problem starts with us, the non-Aboriginal Australians. It begins, I think, with an act of recognition. Recognition that it was we who did the dispossessing.
It's the sort of speech we need about anti-Semitism today. Then there was his eulogy of the unknown Australian soldier on 11th of November, 93.
We do not know this Australian's name, and we never will. We do not know his rank or his battalion. We do not know where he was born or precisely how and when he died.
There was also his True Believers election night victory speech in March 93. And then there was his wit, his brutal, cutting lines in Parliament, like this.
He couldn't sustain the speeches. It was like being flogged with a warm lettuce. Flogged with a warm lettuce.
Why won't you call an early election?
Mate, because I want to do you slowly. I want to do you slowly. He's going, Mr. Speaker, he's going troppo. He's going troppo. He's more to be pitied than despised.
Yeah, they were about John Hewson, but he was equally devastating about his other rivals.
Brian Burke saw Kevin Rudd coming and he played him like a piano.
Poor old Costello, he's all tip and no iceberg.
Mr. Speaker, give him a Valium. Give him a Valium, Mr. Speaker, he needs it.
And of course, Keating famously called the unruly Senate unrepresentative swill. Well, Albanese's record hardly compares with the great Keating. You can barely utter their names in the same breath. Where Keating was a brilliant visionary with devastating wit, Albanese is beige and managerial, utterly lacking in intellect and a bit of a plodder. For Albanese, the list runs a mile long for all the things we should not be celebrating about his record. So let's look at what he'll actually be remembered for. Devastating the economy with 15 interest rate rises, terrible inflation and a cost of living crisis, all on his watch. He failed with his ill-thought-out voice referendum, setting back the Indigenous community for decades. Tax hikes that we never voted for that have caused a housing market crunch. Rampant anti-business policies driving entrepreneurs offshore. Soaring immigration levels that have led to the rise of one nation. The collapse of social cohesion, including the anti-Semitism crisis. And of course, the worst terror attack in Australia's history happened under Albanese's watch after his failure of leadership in the 2 years before that. And while, as I just showed you, Keating gave some of history's greatest orations, from Albanese, we get remarks like this.
Still bonking like rabbits.
Well, you know, when we have time after the footy.
After the footy.
It's always a good aphrodisiac, a south wind.
He'll also be remembered for his broken promises, from power prices to the tax changes.
Reducing power prices by $275.
Can you rule out any changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax?
Yes. How hard is it for the 50th time? We have changed our position.
Yeah, and there are plenty more broken promises. Then there are the lies. From the minor, like I didn't fall off the stage, to the major, like dismissing the return of ISIS brides as a false story.
Stepped off the stage. I didn't fall over on my backside. I commit here that every single year that I have the great honour to be Australia's Prime Minister, I will be here.
You know what, Hamish? I haven't had a day off all year.
What actions has your government taken to guarantee the safety of Australians if these people return?
Those reports are not accurate.
Yeah, so Albanese will likely celebrate his so-called achievement of surpassing Keating's time as Prime Minister with a string of media appearances and accolades from friends. But we have to think back to what Keating once said. He said leadership, after all, is about two things: imagination and courage. And we all know too well that our current Prime Minister possesses neither. We've gone from a true believer to a true underachiever, and our nation is the worse for it. Well, now for some shocking news. 3 boys have been charged over the alleged sexual assault of a girl in Sydney's eastern suburbs. One 13-year-old and 2 14-year-olds who attend the prestigious Scots College allegedly sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl in an alleyway on July 22nd. Police executed search warrants at the 3 teenagers' homes and all were arrested today and granted bail. The school has so far declined to say whether it will suspend the 3 students, but it told the Herald that the alleged attack occurred outside school hours. And the school's principal, Dr. Ian Lambert, said, "I recognise that news of this nature may cause concern within our community and appreciate that parents may have questions. If there's further information appropriate for the college to share, we will do so." It's an awful story, and of course we'll keep you across developments as they come. Now, Pauline Hanson has accused my friend and colleague Chris Kenny of a gotcha question. Now, Chris interviewed Pauline for his upcoming documentary, The Fight for the Right. And in a discussion about foreign policy, he asked if she knew the names of several world leaders.
If you were Prime Minister, you'd have to get involved in a lot of foreign policy. All Prime Ministers do. You'd have to engage with our region. How would you go engaging with Southeast Asia in particular?
Oh, no problem.
So if you became Prime Minister, wouldn't you want to visit Jakarta fairly quickly and meet with the President there?
I don't know if I'd say I want to,
Isn't Indonesia one of our most important partners?
It is one of our most important partners. Chris and I don't have a problem with that.
Do you know who the president is?
No, I don't know his name. I can't remember his name.
You can't remember the name of the president of Indonesia?
Indonesia. No, I can't.
What about the Prime Minister of Japan?
She's... I can't say.
You can't remember her name either?
Yeah.
You could tell us who the president of China is?
Jinping.
That's 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
This will be a big learning curve for you, wouldn't it?
Well, look, I know her name. Do I remember a Japanese name? No, I don't. I'm not in a position. I'm not Prime Minister, am I?
Yeah, so that's from Chris's documentary. Amazing interview. Well, then last night, Pauline went on Chris's show and accused him of asking her a gotcha question. But then she admitted that she still didn't know who the president of Indonesia is.
Chris, and I'll tell the people now, I don't know if you're going to put it in the interview, but you attempted to get me on a gotcha moment.
There was plenty in that interview, and there'll be plenty in the documentary, and there certainly wasn't much there that could be called gotcha. But given you mentioned those questions, have you brushed up? Have you found out who the president of Indonesia is?
No, I haven't, Chris. I told you. Why do I need to?
Oh dear, not ideal. Joining me now to discuss is Nationals leader Matt Canavan. Matt, great to see you again. Well, look, Pauline Hanson wants to be Prime Minister. That's how she's positioning herself. So do you think this line of questioning is legitimate, or do you agree with her that it's a gotcha question?
Look, Sharri, I think any question is legitimate to an elected representative. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. But no doubt, I think what I'm much more interested is to know is what would Pauline Hanson's One Nation's policy be towards countries in our region, rather than know the answers to pop quizzes. Much more important to know how you'd approach the world and our relationships. One criticism I have is that our nation's discussion narrative down here in Canberra, we rarely ever hear anything about Indonesia. Rarely ever hear anything, indeed, about the region we actually exist in. We hear a lot about US politics, a lot about European politics, but the most probably important country next to us, it is our closest neighbour, I think, in some areas. It's close between it and Papua New Guinea. We don't hear much about. And it's the 4th most populous country in the world. They're stealing our industry right now. I speak about Indonesia all the time, but it just really frustrates me that not many people take it up. They're stealing our nickel industry. They've stolen our nickel industry because they're building coal-fired power stations and we are not. They're on track to take over our aluminium industry. The $2.5 billion bailout we gave to Tomago today, a big part of that is because countries like Indonesia are aggressively expanding into aluminium markets. They're not held back by the insane idea of net zero. They just get on with it and deliver cheap power to heavy industry, and they're stealing our lunch because of it. Maybe we should pay a bit more attention to the designs of Prabowo Subianto. He said this. He said this when he got elected.
There you go. You just helped out Pauline.
He said when he got elected.
You just helped out Pauline and said the name of the Indonesian president.
Industries. We should listen a bit more to him.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of One Nation, there were some ugly scenes at the anti-One Nation student protests around Australia today. This was right across the country. Now, thousands of teenagers, university students walked out of school only to hurl abuse at Pauline Hanson. One moment got very ugly when protesters took the microphone from our News24 reporter, Georgie Dickerson.
Similar sentiment to where Kaiser is in prison.
All right, and so while we're talking now, Matt, we're going to show you this incredible new footage. We might bring it up now as on the screen. It's amazing new footage. Avi Yemeni's team took this. You can see Georgie Dickerson running down the street chasing the attacker. If we can play that again, she's in the black coat. The man who stole, not attacker, but the man who took her microphone is in the blue hood. She runs down and chases him, and then she kind of grabs him from the behind to stop him continuing. It's amazing, amazing footage. Then what you're looking at now, those big men, that's Avi Yemeni's security team. He needs 6 security, and they step in and they actually retrieve the microphone for her. If we can just play the beginning bit of that again, because it's just incredible how she, look at her running down the street. Amazing. I'm in awe of how she acted, and then she kind of grabs him from behind. Look at that, Matt. Matt, this is amazing courage from her.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth, Sharri. she deserves an award of some kind. That's an amazing piece of journalism and, as you say, bravery, and good on her. I think all of these students deserve to be detention or grounded. I don't know what the punishment is in schools these days. That should happen. You just should turn up to school. If you don't, you should pay some punishment. And that particular individual, well, something should be elevated more higher than that. You can't go around stealing people's stuff on the street, and there should be action. The reason we've had, I think, an unfortunate outbreak of hate, of violent speech, and ultimately culminating in very violent conduct at Bondi there, tragically, is because we haven't enforced the laws we have at a small scale. We let small things go through to the keeper, and that builds up into much, much bigger things. So there should be a response here for that kind of conduct. The schools should respond to their own students and show some discipline there. And that individual, as I say, deserves tougher sanctions.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that probably a lot of the teachers would be encouraging the students to, leave school and go to the protest. I mean, there's so many activist teachers around, which is part of the issue. Matt, I've been really keen all day to hear your thoughts on this announcement by Albanese and Chris Minns, the New South Wales Premier, earlier today. Taxpayers are set to pay $2.5 billion over the next decade to bail out Australia's largest aluminium smelter. So, I mean, this does employ 1,000 people. But the issue is these endless subsidies. What do you think?
Well, look, we need to save these jobs. I don't want to see them go, but we cannot have a long-term healthy industry based on life support. The government's agenda, its energy agenda, its net zero agenda, has led to a situation where our once proud factories and smelters having to survive government check on life support just to stay alive. This deal today costs $2.5 billion going to Rio Tinto. It follows another deal at the Gladstone smelter a few months ago of $2 billion. So $4.5 billion of your money going to one of the biggest companies in the world, Rio Tinto. All up, the government has given $7.7 billion to other smelters and factories as well, of your money to prop up its failing net zero agenda. So the net zero agenda is now costing us at least two ways. We are paying through the roof with our power bills. They're going up. And now we're having to pay higher taxes to keep manufacturing jobs here, which used to survive when they just used coal-fired power. These smelters have always been powered and fuelled with coal-fired power. Just make one more point, Sharri. Yeah. Keep in mind, this money is going to build wind, solar and batteries so that Rio can say they're using green power. Do you know there's nothing stopping Rio Tinto using coal-fired power to fill up the battery, then go and use that power from the battery and turn around and say we're using green power? Aren't we good boys? Yeah. It is industrial energy washing on a large scale.
Matt Canavan, always love having you on the show. Thank you so much. Well, Angus Taylor's media director, Kane Silom, has been caught on camera snapping at a Channel 10 reporter who asked about the ICAC inquiry.
Are your ratings that bad? Seriously, that's a freaking disgrace.
What, asking questions about an ICAC inquiry?
Yeah, and he's answered them like 500 times. Seriously.
He has not asked...
No wonder 10 plus got cut.
But it's not only Angus Taylor's media team that's been pretty touchy with the media. Pauline Hanson has banned several media outlets from her press conferences, and she won't engage with some journalists at all. To discuss this is my panel, former Labor State Secretary Cameron Milner and former New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott. Great to see you both. Cameron, starting with you, do you think both Angus Taylor and Pauline Hanson are just being too sensitive to questions or criticism?
Well, they're being a bit precious, aren't they? I mean, look, Pauline should let Guardian readers actually have to listen to Pauline Hanson. I think that would be a gift from Pauline to the Guardian viewers and readers. But to Taylor's stuff, what a glass jaw, what a glass jaw. I mean, David, you've been the victim of shit sheets, disgusting shit sheets in New South Wales politics, and it should be fully investigated by ICAC, because if there were factional warriors using, developer money from a Lebanese guy who's actually on the run, or from Dominic Perrottet's brother who's still in Fiji because the authorities can't get to him, then it's a dirty, dirty secret. And Dallas McInerney, has given evidence to say that Angus Taylor, he had lunch with him. He's given evidence to say that Angus Taylor promised him money, $15,000 and $3,000 a month. So let's follow the money, let's follow the trail, and let's have the questions asked. If Angus Taylor has nothing to hide and he has nothing to fear, he should actually be upfront with the Australian people and not have his press secretary, demean journos doing the job and asking the right questions.
Well, Angus Taylor has denied the allegations. He's denied that any payments were made, and we haven't seen any evidence to the contrary. So if the inquiry finishes and there is no evidence to the contrary, then once again it'll be ICAC smearing good reputations as it has done so many times before. But David, to the point of the sensitivity around the media. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I don't think we've had any run-ins, but you must have lost it at reporters over the years when they're asking questions.
Oh, I have, and I'm still apologising to Alex Smith at the Sydney Morning Herald. But most of those done off camera, and certainly never live. I mean, I probably did have a short answer to a few people, but that just does go to show how much pressure Angus Taylor is under, and I think that's very sad, and I think it's unprofessional, and it will look bad to the coalition, because when you start behaving like that, it makes people think, rightly or wrongly, that you are trying to hide something.
So you're being pretty sensitive about it, yeah. Well, I spoke earlier in the show about how the Prime Minister will tomorrow become the fourth longest-serving Prime Minister in history, Cameron, surpassing Keating's record. Oh, Cameron, I would love, as a Labor guy, as a senior Labor guy, to hear what you think about how their records compare.
Well, I love your compare the pair at the start of the program, but the one that I thought was one that we could add to the list was that Paul Keating, warned about Australia becoming a banana republic, and Albo's delivering us into being a banana republic. I mean, $1 trillion worth of debt, no productivity, massive taxes and massive spending. I mean, Keating was genuinely worried about a banana republic, and Albo on his watch is delivering us one.
Yeah, good point. It's true, David. Their records couldn't be more different.
No, they couldn't, but you were very generous. I mean, I grew up in a working-class family in Western Sydney, and Paul Keating was our local member during the time that we had a recession we had to have. So yes, he did some good things. Often people have said he's the best Liberal treasurer we've ever had, certainly up until Peter Costello. But I mean, I think you're right, though. I mean, if you objectively look at the two, Keating could at least hold his head. It didn't on the world stage, held high, but I don't think you can say the same about Albanese.
No, especially not after this melon saga. He's offended one of our closest. Melon Gate. I know, and I'm genuinely, as I said it last night, I'm so sick of talking about the melons. But Cameron, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on New South Wales Premier Chris Minns having to step in and save the PM from having to answer questions. We might actually have a look at that. Here it is.
I've talked here today. Use my hands. Look, I've answered this question many times. The fact is that the Japanese Prime Minister and I have a very good relationship. The Japanese ambassadors made very clear statements, indeed, about how warm our dinner was. And it was indeed. It was fantastic.
Go and ask 1,000 workers what they care about today. Honestly, this is the biggest announcement for this region in a generation. Exactly. Can we just talk about it for 5 minutes?
All right, Cameron, how badly has Albanese handled this?
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, yesterday we had a conga line of Labor women being Albo's angels, and today we had the New South Wales Premier having to land on the grenade. I mean, why can't the bloke just say sorry? I mean, sorry for being a dirty old man, cracking a really bad joke while trying to flirt with a podcaster. I mean, that's what we all saw. I mean, that's what he should apologise for. It was beneath the role of Prime Minister. The longer this goes, the more damage he does. And today we had a big announcement saving 1,000 jobs with taxpayers' money, and it was all about Albo again, wasn't it? Another Albo stuff up rather than a real announcement. And that's the real cost.
And by the way, that comedian Nikki Osborne, she's now gone on Mark Bouris's podcast and said that she got the interview with Albo because she DM'd the PM. That's what she said, DM'd the PM. David, look, should he just apologise now and move on?
Well, I think he should. I mean, the fact that, Chris Minns tried to step in and look statesman-like today, but all he did is make Albo look like a dribbler. And but I mean...
And he was dribbling on
for a while,
wasn't he?
He was a terrible dribbler.
It wasn't hard.
Continues to dribble over this. But Peter Beattie proved that if you want to shut down a story, take it one for the team. Just own it. And I mean, all the mistakes that I made, you just own it and walk on. And that's all the Prime Minister had to do. But today, if you wanted to see the tail between two leaders, you saw Chris Minns step in, look statesman-like, but he also, at the same time, showed the Prime Minister to be just, he'd give a Bex a headache.
Now, one thing that Chris Minns does well is he very easily admits when he's made a mistake, and I think the public love him for that.
They do, and that is a character fault of the Prime Minister and a character strength of the Premier of New South Wales.
We can probably all learn from Minns, about apologising quickly.
Yeah.
I'm wrong, and then what can people say? You get on with it.
Works at home.
Yeah, good to know, David. David Elliott, Cameron Milner, great to see you both. Well, let's turn now to our exclusive story tonight. Let's look at just how many non-citizens are being allowed to stay in Australia despite serious criminal convictions. And we can exclusively reveal that there's 475 non-citizens with criminal convictions here in Australia at the moment. And what's worse, that number includes 16 people who've been convicted of a child sex offence. Now, this 475, they've had their visas cancelled, but the Administrative Review Tribunal then overturned these cancellations. And shockingly, the tribunal admitted that there may be other decisions where the tribunal has set aside visa cancellations of non-citizens, but the required level of detail is not captured by their management systems. So, pretty serious issue. Criminals convicted of a crime, not Australian citizens, but allowed to remain in the country. Joining me now is Shadow Home Affairs Minister Jonathan Duniam, who grilled government officials on this. These are the answers that they took on notice. Jono, why has the tribunal made these decisions?
Well, there is no good answer for this. The reality is, if anyone actually has a beating heart, if they're a parent, if they're a sibling, if they actually care about the security of our country, they would think this is the impossible decision to make, to release someone into the community or not revoke their visa cancellation because of a serious conviction, including, as you said before, people who've committed child sexual offences. It just makes no sense. There is no world in which this is good. But I expect the problem lies in technicalities at law, where you've had lawyers being able to make technical arguments, and members of the ART have found that they need to make a decision accordingly. This is where a government should step in. And this is where a government should say our laws are deficient and we need to give guidance to members of the Administrative Review Tribunal and say this is the kind of stuff you should not be doing, or indeed work with the opposition, the coalition, who are willing to strengthen these laws to stop these people from having their visas cancelled. You don't belong here. You're not the kind of people we want here, and the government should be working to remove them from our country.
It's such a gift to live in Australia, to live in our country, and to think there's nearly 500 people who are convicted criminals, and including 16 with convicted of child sex offences. The issue must be with this tribunal, no? Is the government powerless to act against its decisions?
No, they're not. This is the thing. The government is not powerless to act, and there are things called ministerial directions that provide members of the Administrative Review Tribunal some guidance on how to make decisions. And so this is where a minister can say to the tribunal, if someone has these sorts of criminal records, if they've committed this kind of offence, then you must revoke their visa, you must uphold our decision, and they don't belong here. Again, though, if there are technicalities at law, if the ministerial directions aren't strong enough, then work with the Parliament to pass laws to kick these scumbags out. There's no other way around this. We are not beholden to quasi-judicial or judicial officials. We are not beholden to bureaucrats. People elect parliamentarians. People elect a government. Let's act and change the laws and rules related to how we deal with these sorts of things.
You've also discovered that the Home Affairs Department has done no internal assessments or evaluation of the success of de-radicalisation programs. So they don't know if they're actually working. And of course, de-radicalisation programs are applied to terrorists.
Yeah, terrorists and family members of terrorists, people who've just returned from Syria, ISIS brides and their children. Of course, remember, we talked about it previously, Sharri, and we were going to ask politely for those who've returned to Australia in the cohorts of ISIS brides and their children to participate in this scheme to de-radicalise individuals. Well, A, they're not compelled to do so. B, we don't know whether these programs are successful. So what are we actually doing at a time when the Royal Commission is on foot and we're dealing with the radical elements of our society and needing to stamp it out and, of course, prevent it from being imported into our country? We're not doing anything to correct situations where there are people here who do need to be de-radicalised. I've never had faith in these programs. We're better off keeping these people out.
Yes.
But the fact that we don't know how well these programs work is more alarming than that.
I mean, you just mentioned the Royal Commission. We actually heard evidence from a counter-terrorism coordinator, Brendan Dowling, this week, and he was warning about some of these programs, saying that they're flawed. Have a look.
I would say under that previous program, we weren't able to formulate a clear national picture because the data collection and reporting was variable, patchy, inconsistent.
Yeah, so this is, look, an official analysis or verdict on these programs at the Royal Commission.
Yeah, yet it remains a tool that the government are deploying to deal with this hideous scourge on our society. It explains everything. And again, the fact that they are so at sea on this matter is, I think, a terrible concern. And look, this is Mr. Dowling, of course, I grilled at estimates as well, and he is in charge of the section of the department that didn't know where the ISIS brides were who'd been released into the community. So this federal government, this Labor government, are not actually hand on the tiller. They don't know what we're doing in this country. They don't know where the risks to our society present. They are not managing actively in any way the people that are potentially going to do harm to our nation. So there's a lot that needs to be fixed here, and we keep bringing it up. We keep asking them to fix it. We keep presenting private members and senators bills, but they keep telling us there's nothing to see here, and they move on. They shut debate down with the Greens. This is going to end very badly, and I just hope that people sit up and listen when the Royal Commission hands down its findings, and we as a country can actually do something meaningful to prevent this sort of stuff from ever happening again.
Oh, yeah, depending what its findings are, that we will wait and see.
Indeed.
Very quickly, because we are out of time, but very quickly, were you surprised to hear your colleague Andrew Bragg set the migration level at 180,000 this week?
Oh, look, what Andrew has done, as Andrew does on many things, he is someone who's an active thinker, and he's been talking about this for a long time. He's looking at the broken Labor plan when it comes to build houses, the broken migration system. He's worked up his own numbers around this. We will announce a number. 180 is not it, but I'm glad he's kicked it into debate because it does show a contrast between where Labor's at with their broken migration system and failure to deliver houses.
When are we going to get your number?
Soon, but not tonight, Sharri. I'll give you a number, but more importantly, I'm going to tell your viewers and you.
Is it less than Pauline's figure of 130?
Again, you know what I'm going to do before I give you a number? I'm going to tell you how we got the number.
All right.
Pauline hasn't told you how she achieved the number. We will, and we'll give you the number. Promise.
All right. Jono, got to go. Thanks for your time. And still to come, the university academic who's criticised schools for teaching that child marriage is wrong. And Pauline Hanson and the Coalition are teaming up to try and force the Prime Minister to release his correspondence with Japan over the Melon saga. That's next. The Senate wants the Albanese government to produce its correspondence with Japan over the Melon saga. An unlikely alliance between the Coalition, the Greens, One Nation and the Crossbench is supporting an order for production of documents, and James Patterson led this afternoon. Well, Chief Political Correspondent for 9 newspapers, Paul Sakal, joins me live from Canberra. Paul, great to see you again. Look, only Labor voted against this, so can we expect the government to produce the letters on Monday?
The government, Sharri, has a track record of being pretty recalcitrant when it comes to some of these orders to produce documents. Although on this one, most of it, I think, is out there already. I think the full text has been reported by media outlets, including ours, so it may well be that they're willing to hand these ones over.
I mean, if the government does do this on Monday, or even if it doesn't, I mean, it looks like this Melon Gate is going to roll into week 2.
It probably will. It's obviously a point of sensitivity for the Prime Minister. He's found all different kinds of ways this week to avoid questions. When Mary Aldred, the Liberal backbencher, got up for her second question, I think it was on Tuesday in question time, the Prime Minister, who is as wily as they come in relation to parliamentary procedure, saw her step up and quickly got his documents in order and called for an end of question time. Chris Minns, as your viewers would know, stepped in today. So he doesn't want to talk about it. But on the other hand, and I talked to quite a few Labor people about this today, even the minority of backbenchers who are quite critical of the Prime Minister and wish he would just make an apology and move on, they as well believe that the opposition's wasting its time by dragging this on. They see it as not the main game, the economy and cost of living being the main focus. And so they believe that the opposition's kind of falling into a cheap sugar hit and losing sight of the bigger issues, which can turn into a sustained political argument against Labor.
Paul, do you get any sense how the Labor women are feeling about this? Because we saw so many come out this week and, try and mount a defence of the Prime Minister, but it must be uncomfortable.
I do feel sorry for Tanya Plibersek, the Social Services Minister, who for the second Monday in the space of about a month was forced to, she has a regular slot on Sunrise with Barnaby Joyce on the Monday, be the first Labor woman to mount what looked like a very impassioned defence of the Prime Minister, suggesting that he didn't mean what people, or at least his critics, believed that he meant. She looked to believe what she was saying, Plibersek, so if she didn't, it was a fantastic lie. I think that, look, everyone is squeamish talking about this. People understand what the public perception is. But there are people in Labor, some people in Labor at least, who do genuinely believe the Prime Minister that he didn't mean to go along with the jokes. At a minimum, though, the podcast host was certainly making lewd remarks or suggesting crude double entendres. And so at a minimum, he could have said, sorry, I'm not going to engage in that.
Now she's revealed she slipped into his DMs. That's how she got the interview. So this will be the next saga. Paul, I want to turn to the internal division in the coalition. Of course, Angus Taylor has given Andrew Bragg a talking to after he went rogue this week at the press club. I mean, with the coalition sitting on around 20% in the polls, disunity would be the last thing they want.
Agree. However, the coalition, and they say this themselves, has been in deep opposition now for about 4 years and barely let a month run where it wasn't talking about discipline and it actually allowed some free-flowing debate about what the party stands for. And you talk to people on the right of the Liberal Party, Tony Abbott and Peter Credlin, you talk to people on the left of the Liberal Party, they all say the same thing. The party needs to understand what it's for. And so Andrew Bragg was reckless, he was careless, he could have gone about this through a proper process and he should have been reprimanded in private about those things. But I'd point to Matt Canavan, the Nationals leader, who I was just chatting to outside here, who handled this, I think, in a far more wise way than Angus Taylor and James Paterson did publicly today. He said, look, we're the party of individualism. We're the party of ideas. Andrew Bragg was arguing for a more right-wing, free market, conservative manifesto in economics than anyone on the right of the Liberal Party has for a long time. These are ideas that the Liberal Party believe in. Yes, he didn't follow a proper process, but by Angus Taylor and James Paterson reprimanding him as firmly as they did this morning, they've turned it into a story of destabilisation and a leadership contest. And what does it point to? It points to the deep paranoia and personality differences that still rack the Liberal Party. They've had leadership turmoil for years and years. People don't trust one another. And so even when a shadow minister's trying to have a crack, even if he's done so in a ham-fisted way, it turns into a leadership story.
And that's one thing at least anyway, the Albanese government has done remarkably well. I mean, they have been so unified. Do you think it's really Ed Husic, maybe a couple of others every now and then, say something different, but very rare to get disunity within the Albanese government, despite what they've got 90 plus MPs. It's kind of extraordinary.
It's the Prime Minister's key asset and he knows it. And so that even when there's a really uncomfortable story like Melon Gate, if I'd be so brave enough to call it that, he knows that his caucus will stick fat.
Yeah.
And when there's a little moment of outbreak of disunity, he's shrewd enough to shut it down. It's the government's key asset.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Paul, thanks so much for your analysis. Appreciate it. And still to come, the university professor advocating for child marriage and why the Prime Minister should stop boasting about falling house prices. Tom Panis joins me at the desk after the break. Great to have your company. Well, ANZ is the latest bank to warn about the drop in mortgage applications. Their report today showing a 12% fall since the government announced its sweeping changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax. To discuss this free fall is auctioneer and property expert Tom Panos. Tom, thanks for your time again.
Thank you, Sharri.
Now, ANZ follows Westpac, which reported a 20% fall in home loan applications, CBA a 15%. Now, you've been feeling this and talking about this here on the ground for months.
Yeah, that's no surprise. I mean, we've been seeing this at a grassroots level. You can see how many people are actually wanting to buy a house and how many people are bidding. First home buyers are worried about going in because they're thinking, if I buy, even though it might look like it's good value, it's probably going to drop and I'm going to go to negative equity. Investors, Sharri, well, they got all that wrong. The government thought they were going to get the investors to move from existing properties and buy new properties. But the investors have said, no, bye-bye, we're out of here. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And there's hesitance in the market. So those numbers from the banks mirror with what's going out on the ground.
Yeah, especially, you know, when people, when their homes are their main asset and they're worried about selling for less than they might have done 6 months ago.
Correct. And Sharri, the other thing that we don't take into account is a thing called how rich you feel, the wealth effect.
Yeah.
When people are told your house is worth less money, they go inward. They think I'm poorer and they don't spend as much money going out. And that is not a good thing either.
Now, just looking at the first home buyers. Now, the whole idea of this from the federal government was to get housing more affordable for first home buyers, but you're saying the price point hasn't actually fallen. Is that correct?
Look, Sharri, there's 3 price points in real estate: high end, medium, low end. High has fallen, medium has fallen, and the lower point has not really fallen at all, and in some instances has gone up because of that 5% deposit scheme. This is actually totally against what the government wanted to do. What they wanted to do is to help first home buyers. They, in fact, haven't done that. What they've actually done is help people upgrade from a $3 million property to a $7 million property because the changeover figure is smaller. So I'm not quite sure whether that was the plan. I think that they wanted to help young people.
Yeah,
that's what they were saying, but that hasn't been the case.
Yeah, for votes for political reasons. I
Correct.
mean, that's an absolute disaster. I mean, the whole thing is really, it's such a mess. I want to ask you about how you think this would then therefore be impacting on state revenue. As we know, stamp duty collected by the state governments.
Yeah, so in some states, New South Wales example, 25% of its revenue comes from stamp duties. And now that these transactions are not happening, obviously Mins and the other premiers around the country are going to start saying, hang on a second here, our budgets are being impacted. And there was a report 2 days ago that both Queensland and New South Wales would be regraded financially because of this.
Such a worry if that happens. Tom, you were in New Zealand this week. I want to have a look at your report while you were there.
As I walk around the streets of Wellington, I see empty shops for lease signs, businesses doing it tough, abandoned shops and a property market that's been smashed by 30%. I wish the political party of Australia came and did a 3-day excursion here.
Yeah, so Tom, should Wellington be a warning sign to Australia about government overreach?
I think Anthony Albanese and Dr Chalmers should take a flight across the Tasman and go and have a look at what happened. In 2021, this legislation was brought into New Zealand, and what we saw was the rents go up. We saw the whole place get capitulated. Property prices have dropped by 30% there. So a $1 million house now, 3 years later, $700,000. They have reversed it in recent times. But I'm concerned. We don't want Australia to go down the path of what's happened with Wellington. And we're beginning to see it with these interest rate rises, because the interest rate rises were the thing that really topped it off in New Zealand, particularly Wellington. So it is concerning. It is concerning. I must say, the one thing that we have got in Australia at the moment is unemployment is not high. And I think what's protecting us, Sharri, is that there's going to come a point where an owner's going to say, well, I'm not forced to sell, so I'm not going to sell, and if they don't sell, it doesn't actually set a precedence with a price point. That's the thing that's saving us, but I still got concerns about the first home buyers and negative equity.
Very quickly, I mean, you've got auctions on Saturday,
Yes.
down again.
They are down again. Auction volumes are down, and I think some properties are moving towards private treaty because people are not feeling confident about auction.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's going to be a better spring, but at this stage...
Thanks so much for being here, Tom.
Thank you, Sharri.
Still to come, a former terror group supporter has been hired by one of the world's most elite universities. That's after the break. Well, a former supporter of terror group Hizb ut-Tahrir has been appointed Assistant Research Professor at Cambridge University. Farah Ahmed has outrageously criticised British schools for teaching that child marriage is wrong. And to discuss, Chief Economist at the IPA, Adam Crichton, joins me now. Adam, what can you tell me about this academic?
Well, it's just outrageous, really, that she's been appointed to this position. She's argued that teaching English is the most dangerous of all disciplines because it encourages competition, apparently, and also individualism, things apparently that Islam does not approve of. I mean, she's been on the record for many, many years, and she, saying crazy and outrageous things. I would argue that Western civilization's a cancer, that it's disgusting. She's even, she's received hundreds of thousands of pounds from the British government since 2002, even running schools, public schools, I believe, or at least schools that are subsidised by the government. And she's managed to find herself in this very senior professorial position at what is arguably the most prestigious university in the UK. I mean, she's tacitly being endorsed by the British government because that's a university that is heavily subsidised by British taxpayers. So, I mean, the whole situation is just an outrage, and I think really that Cambridge needs to have an audit, I would say, now of its academics, given there are these two cases just in recent weeks that are just completely outrageous.
I mean, Adam, you went to one of these elite British universities, I think. You were at Oxford.
I went to Oxford, yeah.
I mean, but what does it say about these universities that they've changed so much, that they're hiring people like this?
Yeah, look, it's pretty shocking. 25 years ago, I was at Oxford for a few years, and look, it was left-wing. I mean, let's face it, most academics are pretty left-wing, and that's fine, I suppose, to an extent, but they weren't massively against Western civilisation, and I certainly can't imagine that a professor like this would have been appointed at either university back then. So, I think it's a sign of our civilisation's lack of confidence. We no longer have the courage of our convictions. It's very sad to see, and I hope that there's a community pushback against this, and like I said, that there is some sort of audit. It's just a shameful situation that this woman is being subsidised.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to turn to the economy. The RBA Governor Michelle Bullock this week warned about the low productivity. I mean, what needs to be done? This is quite dire now.
Well, yeah, look, it's been very bad for some time, but look, I'd just be happy if the federal government focused on reducing insanity and not increasing productivity. I mean, we've had the situation now where they're spending billions of taxpayers' dollars to force solar and wind power into the grid, and that, of course, puts smelters out of business, it puts steelworks out of business, and then they come along and spend even more billions to bail them out. That's obviously shocking for productivity. And you've got the workforce. The jobs growth is all in sectors, largely government-supported sectors, the so-called care economy, which are extremely unproductive. So of course you're going to have a national slide in the figures. So look, I just think the bottom line is government needs to get out of the way and let households and businesses make their own decisions about spending money, and then you'll get better productivity. I mean, government spending, remember, it's spending other people's money on other people. It's a very inefficient way of doing things. If you spend your own money, then you know what you want and you're worried about cost. So, the larger government is, the less productive society is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to turn to the Victorian State Government now. Tell us about this treaty body and how much they're spending to hire a new chief executive.
Yeah, look, this is just outrageous, totally obscene, really, from Ben Carroll, the new Premier here, who's out there saying that he's going to, support integrity in spending and efficiency. And you've got a $470,000 salary for the head of this so-called treaty body, which has some weird name that no one can actually pronounce, Gurun Wal or something. And this is a state where people voted 60-40 just a few years ago explicitly against a body like this, a body which has already cost well over $100 million in setting it up. And the ongoing costs, I think, are going to be $70 to $100 million every year. And this is a state with $200 billion of debt, right? I mean, it's completely outrageous. I mean, if he wanted to make a good decision to try to get in November, he should knock the whole thing on the head.
Yeah, well, you need to get into that Treasury Department there, Adam, and fix it all up. Thanks. Good to see you again. Thanks for your time. All right, and thanks everyone so much for your company this week. It's been a fun week. I hope we don't have to talk about melons next week, but for now, here's Paul Murray.